Front Desk, Chapter 58. We sat in silence, the hot tears pooling in my eyes, Billy Bob's hands balling into fists, and Mrs. Q shaking her head, blinking hard, blowing her nose into a tissue like someone had died, because in a way, that's what it felt like. Our dream had died. "This is bull," Hank yelled. He looked madder than I'd ever seen him before, madder even than when he threw that drunk guy out. "It's okay," I said softly. "No, it's not okay," he bellowed. He got up and walked across the room. How could they do this? Maybe what I wrote just wasn't... The lump in my throat became a boulder. Just wasn't good. They slithered in like eels. "You're a bike. The other kids are cars. You'll never be as good as the white kids in their language." I tried to stop it, but it was no use. Doubt came in through every pore. Hank shook his head. "You know what? I'll bet the whole thing's a scam," Hank said. "They're probably not even giving away a motel. They just wanted the money. Probably thought $300 is nothing to people. They didn't know you sold your lucky pennies." My dad's face plunged. You sold the lucky pennies?" he asked. He looked away immediately, but there was a second in which I saw into him crystal clear. I saw his hope fade away. "We'll help you find new ones," Hank said, looking around at the other weeklies. "We'll all look, won't we?" The weeklies instantly started digging into their pockets for loose change. "No, it's fine," my dad said. "I'm fine." Later that night, the weeklies went back to their rooms, and I sat with an emptiness that was almost unbearable. I went out the back to look for my dad. I found him sitting by himself in the laundry room. "Hey, Dad," I said. He looked up at me, his eyes pink and moist, like he'd been crying. "Hey, sweetheart," he said. He quickly dabbed his eyes with the towels. "I'm sorry I sold our lucky pennies," I said to him. I told myself I wasn't going to cry, but the tears came anyway. My father pulled me into his arms. "Hey, no, it's okay. You win some and you lose some," he said, kissing the top of my head. "But I always lose some." My dad looked down at me and wiped a tear away too. "That's not true," he said. "Because of you, Uncle Zhang's now free. Hank has a new job. I'll call that a win." "But I really wanted a win for us this time," I muttered. My dad rocked me in his arms. "I know you did, sweetheart," he said, his voice shaking. "I know you did." Chapter 59. So that's it. I'm not going, I told Lupe at school the next day. "I can't believe this," she said. "Did they say who won?" I shook my head. "I bet it was their cousin or their son or something stupid like that," she said. "It couldn't have been your essay. I read your essay. It was so good." It felt good to hear her say that, although a part of me still wasn't sure. We were sitting on the grass in PE, way out in left field, avoiding the ball and any chance of injury as usual. Lupe picked a blade of grass and twirled it around her finger. "You know, I'm kind of glad you're not going," she said. "So you don't have to stay with Jason all by yourself?" I asked, squinting at her in the sun. "So I don't have to stay on the roller coaster all by myself," she whispered. It occurred to me at that moment what it would have been like for Lupe if I had left. I always thought I was the one who needed her, that I was the barnacle to her whale. But it wasn't one way. We needed each other, me and Lupe. She had been trying to tell me this all along, but it never really hit me until now. "Well, you don't have to worry," I said. "I'm not going anywhere." Lupe smiled at me. "I'll be on the roller coaster for a long, long time," I said. Lupe shook her head. "No, you're not. You're getting off," she said. "We're both getting off. Together." She put her hand on top of mine, and I looked down at our two hands in the grass. Later that day, after we had filed back into class, Mrs. Douglas turned to us and clapped our signal. As everyone sat up in their seats and listened up, she turned to me. "Mia, will you please come to the front of the class?" Mrs. Douglas asked. I glanced worriedly at Lupe as I got up and walked over. Now, class, you all remember the stories I asked you to write a while back about a small moment in your life? Mrs. Douglas asked. My heart jumped to my throat. Mia here wrote about what it was like to come to America on an airplane, she said. Anyway, the other fifth grade teachers and I got together and we read everyone's story, and we all agree that Mia's story. She paused for what felt like an eternity. I squeezed my eyes shut. Is absolutely wonderful. My jaw dropped. Mrs. Douglas handed me my story. Mia, will you please read your story to the rest of the class? I blinked at Mrs. Douglas, waiting for her to say, "Oh, wait, there's been a mistake. Was this going to be like the chocolate notebook again?" I told myself, do not feel warm and fuzzy, not yet. But then I snuck a peek down at my paper. There were red marks all over it, just like the last time, and lots of exclamation marks. But they didn't scream bad grammar in shouty caps. They said things like moved me to tears and oh, Mia, this is incredible. Go on, Mrs. Douglas said. Read your story to the class. Right now? I asked. Mrs. Douglas nodded. With trembling hands, I took it from her and slowly began to read. As I read, my voice wavered. My throat was prickly, my lips dry. Still, I pushed forward in my tiny voice. When I finished reading, the whole room was silent. Everyone's eyes were on me. I stood so still, if a breeze swept through the classroom, I would have fallen. And then, amid the deafening silence, I heard a sound. The sound of clapping. I looked up to see Lupe clapping. A few kids joined her, and soon almost everyone in the room was clapping, even Jason Yao. I felt my throat pinch with emotion. That was beautiful, Mrs. Douglas said. I looked up at the swelling pride in her face and instantly forgave her for giving away my sparkly pencil. Thank you, Mrs. Douglas, I said, and started going back to my seat. Wait, Mrs. Douglas said, I have something for you. She reached inside her desk and pulled out a small piece of paper, which she handed to me. I peered at the words, Pizza Hut, written on it. 2 free pizzas at Pizza Hut, for you and a friend, she said. I looked up at Mrs. Douglas. I looked into her eyes. Are you sure? Are you sure there hasn't been a mistake? When enough time passed and I was finally sure she wasn't going to take it away, I looked over at Lupe. Her eyes sparkled with excitement.